Hello, hello. Oh, I'm going to say goodbye for a sec. Hello, this is Deirdre Verbo. Thank you so much for joining me on Let's Talk Seniors, Memory Care Issues, Alzheimer's, Dementia, and Parkinson's. Many of you know me as the author of the book, Home to Home, a step-by-step guide for senior housing. If you'd like to get a copy, just email me or text me, write to me. Love to send you one. I'm also the owner of Just Like Home, the senior home residence for seniors with memory care issues in Shelton, and looking to open more homes. So if you know of anybody that has a beautiful ranch, it could be a wreck, I don't care, gonna renovate it in Shelton, I would love to talk. Tonight we have a special guest on, Lance Galassi. He is with Constellation Home Care, and he is going to dispel some myths people have about hospice. I know that prior to knowing all about seniors, as I do now, I had no idea the difference between hospice and palliative care. And I think a lot of people have no idea. So Lance is, oh my gosh, he's been in the business for 14 years. He is an executive, account executives and business development person with Constellation, and they are community-based home health services. They center around complete care. So you do not have to go elsewhere. They do home care. They'll care for your loved one in a facility, in their own home, in assisted living, and they do everything, soup to nuts, all the way to hospice. So Lance is here to tell us all about it. And without further ado, let me introduce him. There he is, the man of the hour.
Hi, how are you?
Lance.
Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And this is such a big issue at the moment. Everything to do with seniors and hospice, palliative care, getting enough care. People are having a struggle. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first and a little bit about Constellation and what they do differently?
Sure. Well, I've been in the industry, like you said, for about 14 years. I've sort of done it all. I worked in 2 assisted living buildings. I worked in non-skilled home care, and now I'm my first job in the industry of any type of skilled need or palliative and hospice. And you're right, hospice is, it's a word people are scared of, and then there's a lot of miseducation on it, which we'll go into. But Constellation is a great company. In different parts of Connecticut, we do offer different services, but in most of Connecticut, we can do the full continuum of care, which is wonderful. That includes skilled nursing, PTOT speech therapy, palliative and hospice, and also private duty. And the benefit of that is, a lot of families are already stressed out when having to go through this process with their loved one. So having to use multiple agencies can really get confusing and be a lot of work. So having a company that can do it all is wonderful.
That's for sure. So how do you find your caregivers? Like, how do you train them? Are they specially trained are they hospice nurses? Are they hospice angels, I call them? How do you find your people? How are they trained?
Most of them are found, through a lot of times. Actually, my boss actually reached out to me today and asked if we had somebody in Philadelphia, because I used to work for a national company, and I was actually able to refer somebody to them. So a lot of times we try to find people that our staff knows and trust, right? Because we want to hire the right staff. When you're hiring people to care for your loved ones, you can't hire anybody, right? It's not McDonald's. It's so the process is, even when we're in a bind, we still have to go through. We'd rather not have the caregiver than have the wrong person. So I would say we're pretty picky with who we hire. And then most of them have knowledge. If not, then they go through a lot of training. I mean, even me as a business development person, not being clinical, I still had to go through a lot of training for all aspects of what we do. Not that I'm clinical or nurse in any way, but there's a lot of training involved.
Lovely. So you also, Constellation is not just in Connecticut. It's in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. So you're a pretty big company.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So if people move their loved one, like if your mom's in New York and you move her to Connecticut, you can continue the care.
Depending on and per state, yeah, because in certain states we might only offer hospice or we might only offer home health. So it depends. But yes, we can help.
Okay. So when should people call in hospice? And what is the difference between hospice and palliative? And should people get scared if like the hospital or assisted living recommends, like, we think your mom should go on hospice, or what does that mean?
So, I mean, your first question, I think the guidelines, you're always going to have your physician, right? You give a professional judgment to see when somebody's ready. But there are signs, when somebody may be ready for hospice. You have, substantial weight loss in 6-month period, or constant visits to the ER and within 6 months, or, overwhelming weakness or fatigue, or the lack of doing things that used to be joyful. That's a big one, right? Because, if somebody loves gardening and all of a sudden they just don't want to do it anymore, that's a sign, right? Not being able to bathe or shower on your own. Those are all signs of somebody who, it doesn't mean that they may be ready. That could happen to a lot of seniors, right? But those are just some signs to look for. The difference between, palliative and hospice is it's pretty simple. And I didn't know this either, years working in the business, right? Once I got this job, you sort of learn that it's not as tricky as it seems. So for palliative care, it more offers expert pain and symptom management for those with a serious illness or advanced conditions. But with palliative, you're still seeking curative treatments, right? Somebody's still treating that. Where in hospice, the concept of care is more focused on providing comfort, pain relief, and support to those faced with the terminal illness. And the patient and family have both agreed that they're not going to seek curative treatments. That's really the main difference. So it's not as confusing as it seems.
So with palliative care, am I saying it right?
Still treating.
Is it just palliative or
palliative? Palliative, okay. Yeah.
So with palliative care, it's not like you're on your last limb. It's not like your last few days or months or anything. It's more treating pain.
That's correct. Yes. Whereas hospice is somebody who more has a terminal illness and maybe has a diagnosis of 6 months or left to live. Now, that doesn't mean that you're on your last leg either. We have plenty of people that graduate from hospice and have a turnaround, which is wonderful. So people shouldn't be as scared of the word, but I totally understand why they are scared. Because I would be too, especially dealing with my own loved one.
Well, so we see, especially in the memory care segment, we see a lot of people that do get, they are suffering a bit from depression and confusion and maybe weight loss, lack of appetite, but they don't seem to be in any kind of pain. So why would we call in palliative care, or is that just if they're in some sort of pain?
I think it's really a conversation to have with your staff, the doctor, and the family, right? It's sort of a group decision, really. I mean, you're not going to leave it up, especially if somebody has dementia, right? They can't really make that decision for themselves. So I think, you would leave that mostly in the family and physician's hand to decide if it was a dementia patient.
So, at our home, at Dogwood Home, we've had 3 people on hospice. Mm-hmm. They've come into the home on hospice, and it was really actually very beautiful. So one of the things I was concerned about, Lance, opening up a senior home, to be honest, was I haven't had tons of experience with death and people dying, and I get really connected to people, and I'm very connected to my seniors. So I'm like, this is going to be pretty disturbing. But we had 3 people come in on hospice, and one of them was 99 and a half. And I said to her daughter, who'd been talking to me for a year, or like 6 months to a year, about bringing her mom over to our home, I said, are you sure, like, your mom, you've had her at home since COVID and she's definitely not going to be here for long. Don't you want to stay home with her? And she said, you know what? I don't want her dying in my house. And I don't want all the people all the time at my house. And she said, every time my mom doesn't breathe, I don't breathe. So she said, it's like, it was so exhausting, as she adored her mom. And so her mom came to her home, and she came every day for like 8 hours and stayed with her mom. But she was so happy to have everybody around, because the other people in our home, they would sing to her and stroke her hair and touch her arm, and like it was a beautiful way to go. And this happened with the other two as well. And so it totally changed my mind, because I just thought, oh, if you're in hospice, everybody of course wants their parents to stay home, and you're just going to bring in hospice help and let them die at home. But then you have like somebody that died in your bedroom, and it's just like,
I think all families are different, right? Some people want to stay home. Some people want to do exactly what you just explained. And I mean, one of my memories, my wife's grandfather passed, and he got a terminal diagnosis where he had like a few days to live. It was just so sudden. And one of the nicest thing was we had a party at his house, like everybody, cousins, nephews, and he was like, he wasn't like in a bed. He was able to walk around, and he was able to talk and share his feelings with everybody. And it was one of the nicest. I said to myself, I would love to go that way, because we were all there. We had a party, we ate, we laughed, and then he passed that night in his bed. And it was the absolute best way to go. You know, what can be better than that? You know,
nothing can be better than that. That's amazing. Yeah. That's like, you're okay, and knowing you're going to go, that's kind of weird, but still strange, but at least all your family and loved ones around. But with the hospice, people were just so loving and so beautiful. And the family so appreciated the care and the treatment, and just the hospice nurse. Like, I think they're angels. Like, wow, to be there for the family and the support that they give.
Yeah. People don't realize you can get that. Like you said, the hospice is wherever your home is. It might be a nursing home, it might be a care home, it might be an assisted living, or it might be where you grew up. It doesn't matter. They can do the hospice anywhere. So a lot of people think it's just something in a hospital, or maybe they can't do it at certain places. And also, I don't think people realize the benefit of hospice, right? Like you were saying, you get close to your residents, right? So does somebody who lives in a nursing home for years. They're caretakers. Here at Constellation, after a person passes, we do 13 months of bereavement. So, and that could be for you. It could be for a roommate. It doesn't have to be. Some people don't have families. Maybe the roommate and him or her were together for 5 years. That person may need some help, dealing with and coping with it. And there's just so much. Like for Constellation, we have music therapy, Reiki, aromatherapy, pet therapy. And a lot of other companies aren't doing that due to COVID and staffing, where we've been able to still do it. And I think it's wonderful, because those things are so important,
So how does that work? Like, how does pet therapy work, or aromatherapy, or music therapy?
Everybody has their different thing, right? So you're really honing in on the senses. So a lot of hospice, and again, most hospice companies are great, but what you don't want is somebody just showing up, right? Somebody, maybe somebody was Italian and they grew up with the smell of sauce, and that smell is comforting for them. Let's do that. Let's get something cooking in the room if that's what makes
garlic. That's a great idea. You could smell garlic is my favorite.
Music therapy or aromatherapy, we can put certain music in the room that's comforting to them. Or maybe they grew up in the 50s and love 50s music. Whatever it is that's going to make them happy and smile. We want to make the hospice experience as joyful as possible. And pet therapy, exactly what it is. I mean, some people just, maybe they love dogs or loved cats. I remember a hospice story when I worked in the heart of Southbury years ago. This woman was passing, and this is before I worked there, but the story always stuck with me. This woman raised horses, and her dying wish was to be with her horse, and she couldn't leave the facility. They brought the horse as she was dying to the window. The horse was able to stick its head and be with her while she was passing. That to me was one of the best hospice stories I've ever heard.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So there's a lot of negative and a lot of scary things, but there's also a lot of positive stories with hospice.
So how is this paid for?
A hospice is paid for Medicare, Medicaid, and other insurance providers, which is great. Medicare covers all hospice services, including medications, supplies, equipment, anything related to terminal illness.
Wow, that's great. So they call you and you take care of all that.
Yep, our clinic. We have social workers, we have spiritual counselors, and our hospice liaison would be the point of contact to the family to take care of all that.
And have you ever been brought in where people need hospice and the family refuses it because they think like it means the end and they don't want to face it? You know, just like the way people don't want to make a will, like they're not going to die ever.
Yeah, that's common. I think it's also common that a lot of the professionals are scared to have the conversation. So a lot of families wind up waiting too long and they wind up going on palliative care, which is great, but you don't get all the benefits you get with the hospice. So our staff will try to talk them into hospice if needed because of the benefit.
What are the different benefits?
Well, with benefits for hospice, you have social workers, volunteers, you have nursing, you have the spiritual counselors, all the services that we mentioned, the ancillary services like the Reiki, the music therapy, the aromatherapy. That is all included with hospice, where you wouldn't be able to get that on palliative care. So
interesting. Okay, but palliative care seems less scary.
It does. And again, if somebody is still treating the underlying disease, then that's okay if that's what the family's wishes are. I mean, our job is to educate, but we're not going to make the decision for the patient or the family. That's up to them to make as a group,
Very nice. So do you handle hospice differently within Constellation than you do anything else?
I mean, with right now staffing when this rise of COVID, I mean, even today in my conversations being out in the field, a lot of the other hospice companies are they're struggling with quick starts of care, which are important, right? Whether it's for a facility or somebody getting discharged to go home. If somebody finally agrees to hospice, we don't want to wait 5 days to get them started. We want to start the care right away. And Constellation's done a wonderful job of being able to do starts of care within 24 to 48 hours. What I also think is very comforting for families, which a lot of hospice companies will have like an 800 line, but we have a 24-hour line. So for whatever reason, as you may know, working with your families, when things go wrong, they always seem to go wrong at like 2:00 in the morning. They never go wrong like in the middle of the day. So it's comforting to know that you can call somebody and get a live person on the phone 24 hours a day with Constellation. It's just very comforting for families. If something's going wrong and you're scared for your loved one, it's nice to be able to talk to somebody.
And do you find that most people want their loved one to stay at home on hospice, Lance, or are they looking to?
I think it's mixed. Yeah, I think it's mixed, and sometimes they're already in a nursing home or already living in an assisted living. It's very rare though if somebody's in an assisted living where they say, "Oh, let's move mom or dad out to go back home." A lot of times, as you know, families have already sold the home. I think they're usually comfortable where they are at that point because it's considered home, no matter where they are at that point in life.
Sure. Sure. And how has COVID affected everything you've been doing?
It's affected everything. That's COVID has been tough. I mean, as far as for staffing, it's been hard. For getting in front of professionals, it's been hard. Having access to the hospitals and getting up to the floors for me to talk to case managers and social workers and even doctors and educate them. As we've been in this industry a long time, and there's a lot of other professionals that still don't know what palliative or hospice is, or maybe you're still unsure of what it is. So I think constantly educating. COVID's made that harder to do. I like doing lunches and in-services for professionals too. It hasn't been lately, it's been better, but when COVID first hit, it was a struggle. I was working from home when I was working for a place for mom for the entire last year of me working for them was at home. I was lucky because I keep a good database. I had most people's contacts, so I was still able to do business. But I feel bad for people that are starting in our field jumping into an account role or a business development role. If you don't have the contacts, it's very hard right now to go out.
But also people kept their loved ones home more, right? Instead of going to the hospital or the doctor. So, I mean, do you treat people with COVID? I'm not treat. Do you go and take care of them?
Yeah. So if somebody has COVID or not, they would just wear the protective PPE, whether it was an assisted living or their home.
Okay. And now all your staff has to be COVID vaccinated. Right?
Yep, double vaccinated, and now the booster shot as well. I think the governor put out a mandate that we all have to have the booster by February 11th, I believe is the date. So I have to get my booster.
Go get your booster. Of course, that makes sense. That makes sense working with seniors. So that is super. So what else would you like us to know about the differences or what your services are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would love for anybody to reach out to me directly if they do have questions. We have an 800 number, but I can, if you have, maybe you're a professional and you have a referral for us, whether it's home health, PTOT or speech, or for palliative or hospice, I'll get you a quick answer and start of care. And families are more than welcome to reach out to me too, either myself or we have a wonderful hospice clinical liaison who can have the conversation with families, even if they're not ready. It's not about calling us because we want the business or we want to start the care. Even if it's just a conversation to have to answer those questions that you have, we're more than happy to help with that. It's not about getting somebody on services. It's about answering the questions and helping families.
Yeah. When my dad was dying, and I said to my mom, this also before I knew what really it was, I said, well, let's bring him home and get hospice. And she was like, he's good where he is. And she'd go there every day for like 10 hours. But I get it now. I get that not everybody wants to take their loved one home, because when somebody's sick as well, it's also, you're there 10 hours a day at the hospital, the nursing home. Like, you need to go home and have a rest.
You have to. You're going to get caregiver stress is a real thing. I mean, I tell families all the time when they're, when it's a husband or wife and they're taking care of their loved one, they want to be home. You're constantly, I mean, especially if, God forbid, the person has like any type of dementia or Alzheimer's, this makes it even harder. It's a job in itself, and you forget to take care of yourself because you're so worried about your spouse or your father or mother, whoever it is that's sick. You really stop caring for yourself. And I've seen a lot of people get sick, and no,
it's like caring for a little baby. Like, the emotion, it's just exhausting emotionally, not just physically. Even if you have physical help, it's so emotionally exhausting that you need your own help. So
and you get to enjoy your time more when they're not with you 24 hours a day, when you're visiting them at a place, especially like a place like yours or on services with us. They're getting that extra care, extra activities. And when you go to visit your loved one, now it's all about just enjoying the time with that person. It's, it's not caring for them constantly, which is, it can be stressful.
These are tough times. So glad you guys are out there helping everybody. It's really a crazy tough time.
Be happy you grew up when you did.
But it's super that you have all the caregivers too, because I know a lot of agencies are having trouble staffing and just finding good people. And you not just find them, but you're teaching them and training them and educating and keeping them and making sure before they're sent out. And that's key. That's key to keeping them going. So I appreciate that. So Lance, thank you so much for telling everybody the difference between palliative and hospice. Do you want to just repeat it so everybody knows exactly what that is? Because you said it's pretty simply.
Sure. So, I mean, palliative care offers expert pain and symptom management for those with a serious illness or advanced conditions, but they may have an advanced chronic illness but are still seeking treatment, right? So palliative care, still seeking treatment. Whereas hospice, the concept of care focused more on providing comfort and pain relief and support, but they've also agreed as a family that they're no longer seeking curative treatments. That's your biggest difference between the two.
Yeah. I have a friend whose mom is 93 and she's had cancer off and on. and they want her to have like an operation. And my girlfriend's like, we're not giving her an operation. No, she has dementia, she has cancer. She's like, she would not survive an operation. What's the point? So that's when that's when she would go on hospice, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's the type of family who can probably benefit from a conversation with us. Again, doesn't mean that they're making any type of decision right now, just a conversation so they're more educated on what's available.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Lance. And people can call you Constellation right at your direct number, 203-295-9739, 203-295-9739. And come on again and let us know what's happening and what's the news and the new things we need to know.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye for now. That was Lance Galassi, Constellation. And this is a really important topic. I think so many people, they just don't know what to do with their loved one, especially when they are older or sick. I know it's happening with a lot of my friends, and they always ask me, like, they want to put my mother on hospice. She's walking around. She seems fine. I'm like, well, that's just in case, they don't want to treat her because she's in her 90s. If you don't want to treat her any major way, that doesn't mean you're not treating her with medicine and pills, but you might not want to give her have an operation. It's hard to survive an operation like that, or what's like the point. So it's quality of care. But thank you so much, Lance, for coming on, and we really appreciate you explaining all that. And I appreciate all of you watching and tuning in. Tell others about us. And we are here to bring you lots of information about seniors, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, anything you'd like to know. We're here to tell you. Until next time.
Hi, Deirdre here again. Thank you for joining me on Let's Talk Seniors Memory Care Issues. Is this an issue hitting home? Do you have a parent or loved one with memory care issues who feels not safe at home anymore? Are isolation, falls, and safety issues becoming a big concern? Welcome to Dogwood Senior Home, premier boutique residential senior living specializing in memory care. It's country living at its best in the Huntington section of Shelton, Connecticut. Senior residential homes are concepts sweeping the nation with 47,000 across the U.S. We're pleased to open Dogwood Senior Home as it will be only number 6 for Connecticut. Brand new, sparkling clean, and safe. We are COVID-free. Residential care homes boast a very low COVID infection rate across the nation. This is due to the intimacy of size and speed in which the caretakers can shift to accommodate immediate needs. They are much safer than the large homes and facilities, as you can imagine. It has been documented that residents have less falls and a better quality of life in a residential home environment. Our home is more affordable than the big box facility. You pay one all-inclusive price, and that price is guaranteed for the life of the resident. With an incredible 1-to-3 caregiver ratio, which you won't find anywhere else. Our friendly, loving caregivers are dedicated and trained in Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's issues. Call me at 203-689-7562 for a talk and tour. I would love to meet you and your loved one. See you soon. Bye.